Epic cinematic music underscores scenes of deserts, iron chariots racing across the sand, and ancient Israel fighting for their freedom. As a lone warrior stands silhouetted against the setting sun, a deep, steady voice begins to narrate. She was not a warrior with a sword in her hand, nor a queen sitting on a throne. She was a woman beneath a palm tree, a judge, a prophetess, a mother in Israel. Yet through her voice, an entire nation would rise. This is the story of Deborah, God's chosen leader, whose faith shook armies, broke the power of oppression, and proved that the Almighty can work through the most unexpected vessels. Part 1. The Land in Darkness. After Ehud's death, Judges 12 verse 11 tells us that the Israelites did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and served the gods of the Zidonites, the Amorites, and the Philistines. They abandoned God, who had rescued them from Egyptian bondage, turning instead to idols like Baal and Asherah, whose worship had been forbidden since the days of Moses. God responded by allowing the Israelites to be oppressed by the Canaanite king Jabin. He reigned in Hazor, about 30 miles north of the Sea of Galilee, and he had a ruthless commander named Sisera who crushed the Israelites. With 900 iron chariots, they were unstoppable. Ancient war machines like the tanks of today, these chariots raced across the land, delivering swift justice to those who defied Jabin's rule. Picture a chariot like a chariot race. Two teams of horses pull a two-wheeled vehicle driven by a charioteer. In the front sits a warrior armed with a bow and arrows or a spear. Chariots were symbols of wealth, status, and military might. For 20 long years, Israel suffered under this tyranny. Villages burned, farmers dreaded working in the fields, and hope flickered faintly on the horizon. It seemed as though there would never be deliverance. But throughout it all, prayers rose like whispers in the darkness. A faithful remnant cried out for God to save them. Part 2. Deborah, the judge and prophetess. In those dark times, there lived a woman named Deborah. She was the daughter of Lapidoth, which means, "My heart is devoted." And her life indeed exemplified that name. She was a prophetess and judge holding court in the hill country of Ephraim. Under the palm of Deborah, people journeyed for miles to seek her wisdom and counsel. Judges chapter 4 tells us that she was a mother in Israel who exercised authority over the people. Her home became a sanctuary where weary travelers found rest and received guidance. Deborah wasn't just a woman of the cloth. She was also a woman of action. She played a pivotal role in shaping the course of Israel's future. And here's why she stood out. Number 1, she was a woman in a man's world. In those times, women weren't typically leaders. Men dominated positions of power and influence. But Deborah shattered those norms. She wasn't afraid to speak up, to offer her wisdom and take charge when others faltered. Her prominence as a judge and prophetess made her a beacon for women everywhere, showing them that they could be voices of change even in the most challenging circumstances. Number 2, she was a woman of faith. Deborah didn't just talk about God. She lived her life guided by her belief in Him. Her faith wasn't passive, it was active, influencing every decision she made and every word she spoke. This faith wasn't shaken by the challenges around her. It remained strong, guiding her people even when all seemed lost. One day, while sitting under the palm of Deborah, God spoke to her. He told her to summon Barak, son of Abinoam, to go to Mount Tabor, instructing him to gather 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. There, God would draw Sisera and his Canaanite army to the Kishon River and deliver them into the hands of Barak. The message was clear. God had a plan to free his people, and Deborah was to be a key part of it. Part 3. Barak's hesitation. When Barak heard God's message through Deborah, he immediately went to her. But his reaction was far from what Deborah and God had hoped for. He expressed his willingness to fight, but on one condition. He said, "If you go with me, I will go. But if you don't go, I won't go." In other words, Barak wanted Deborah to join him on the battlefield. He believed that with her presence, God would be more likely to grant them victory. Now, this wasn't exactly what God had planned. Deborah was to be a leader, not a warrior, and sending her to the battlefield would have put her in unnecessary danger. However, her faith was steadfast. She knew that God had a purpose for her, and she was determined to fulfill it. So she agreed to go with Barak, but not without giving him a prophecy that would shock him. She said, "The honor will not be yours. The Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." These words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The honor, the glory of victory, would not belong to Barak. Instead, it would be a woman who would play the decisive role in defeating Sisera. To understand how shocking this was, consider this. Back then, as now, the idea of a woman being the hero in a story was not common. Women were not usually seen as capable of achieving great things, especially not in battle. Military glory was reserved for men, and Barak, like many others, probably believed the same. He thought that the victory over Sennacherib would be his. So when Deborah told him that the honor would not be his, but would belong to a woman, he was probably quite surprised. Imagine his shock. He had been a warrior all his life, training and fighting for years, and now he was being told that he would not be the one to get the glory. Instead, a woman would be the hero of the story. Part 4. The Battle at Mount Tabor. With Deborah's blessing, Barak rallied the troops. 10,000 men answered the call, assembling on Mount Tabor. It was an unlikely army. Farmers, shepherds, villagers, ordinary people who had known peace for so long that they'd forgotten how to fight. But they were united in their desire for freedom and their trust in God. Meanwhile, Shesha, unaware of the force gathering against him, advanced confidently with his chariots and soldiers, fully expecting an easy victory. As the Canaanite army approached, the scene was one of overwhelming power. The thundering of iron wheels echoed across the valley, shaking the very foundations of the mountains. Iron chariots, gleaming in the sunlight, moved forward in perfect formation, their soldiers ready to strike. It looked like a well-oiled machine, unstoppable, invincible. But what happened next turned this advantage into a disadvantage. Suddenly, as if God had orchestrated it, a violent storm broke out. Heavy rain poured from the sky, turning the dry ground into sticky, muddy terrain. Rivers that were usually small trickles of water became raging torrents. The flat ground became a quagmire. Sisera, caught off guard, struggled to maintain control. The once proud chariots, symbols of his power, were now stuck in the thick mud, unable to move. The horses panicked, snorting and thrashing, making the situation worse. It was as if the ground itself was rebelling against the tyranny that had held Israel down for so long. Seeing this turn of events, the Israelites surged forward, no longer cowering in fear, but charging with newfound courage. What was once a disciplined army became a scene of chaos. Soldiers fled, abandoning their chariots and weapons, hoping to escape the sticky grip of the mud. The victory belonged to Israel. Part 5. Jael and the Fulfillment of Prophecy. Sisera, desperate to escape, fled on foot, exhausted, drenched, his armor discarded, his face streaked with mud and rain. He stumbled along, driven by nothing but the instinct to survive. Just when he thought he couldn't go on, he saw a light in the distance, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. He staggered toward it, calling out for help. The light led him to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber, the Canaanite. She was known for her hospitality, for being a woman who welcomed all, regardless of who they were or where they came from. Without hesitation, she invited Sisera inside, offered him milk to drink and a blanket to rest on. He accepted, exhausted and trusting, believing that he had found a moment of respite. But little did he know that this seemingly kind act would be his last. As Shisha slept, unaware of the danger that lurked nearby, Jael took a tent peg, a simple tool used for everyday tasks, and a hammer. And with a decisive blow, she ended his life. When Barak arrived at the tent of Heber and asked about Sisera, Jael calmly replied, "He is resting under my porch." Surprised, Barak entered the tent and discovered Sisera's body. In that moment, the prophecy given by Deborah came to pass. The honor went to a woman, not in the way that might have been expected, but in a manner that defied conventional notions of heroism. Part 6. Victory, Song and Legacy. With Sisera defeated, Jabin's oppressive reign crumbled, and Israel knew 40 years of relative peace. In Judges chapter 5, we read that Deborah and Barak sang a victory song, one of the oldest poems in Scripture. It celebrated their triumph and served as a reminder of the greatness of God. But the true victory was more than just a moment of triumph. It was a testament to the power of faith. It was proof that even in the darkest of times, God could raise up unlikely heroes and lead them to victory. Now, before we close, let's look beyond the epic battles and victories. Let's focus on something else. Something that makes Deborah's story even more powerful. The fact that she was a woman who dared to lead in a man's world. She wasn't afraid to stand up, to speak out, to make a difference. She wasn't content to sit back and watch as her people suffered. She acted, she took charge. And in doing so, she broke barriers and opened doors for generations of women to come. Closing reflection. As we reflect on Deborah's journey, remember this: God often chooses the most unlikely of vessels to accomplish his purposes. From a judge who doubted God's call to a woman who wielded a simple tent peg, each person played a part in bringing about a great victory. Are you facing challenges in your life right now? Perhaps you feel like you're outnumbered, outgunned, or simply out of your depth. Remember Deborah. She faced an oppressive empire with limited resources, but with unwavering faith in God, she led her people to victory. If you're feeling overwhelmed, step back and seek God's guidance. Identify your strengths and resources, and just like Deborah, take action. You might not have chariots or large armies at your disposal, but you do have faith. You have courage, and you have the strength that comes from knowing you serve a God who specializes in turning the impossible into the possible. Thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please like and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. We've got some amazing stories waiting for you. Until next time, stay blessed.